Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for this session about converting excess land and airspace to create new areas and increase your OC's revenue. Now, that sounds like a win-win for everyone. So I'm Nikki Jovicic from LookUpStrata, and I'm also the Managing Director of Tower Body Corporate, a body corporate management company in Queensland. I'm your host for this webinar today, and we're joined by James Bouteris from Asset Strata Valuers. James will show us how to transform unused spaces, such as airspace, surplus land, or the rooftop on your building to unlock potential. Using examples of projects that Asset Strata Valuers has been involved in, James will illustrate how your building can either benefit from an increase in assets or make financial gains by selling newly converted spaces. It sounds really interesting. Before we begin, I'd like to mention that the information in this session, including the discussions that arise from chat conversations and questions, is not legal advice and should not be relied upon as advice, and you should seek independent advice before acting on the information contained in the session. We welcome James Bouteris from Asset Strata Valuers. James has over 30 years experience within the property, agency and valuation professions. He holds a Master of Property Development, a Bachelor of Business and Property and an Advanced Certificate of Property Agency. James is renowned for his extensive knowledge, expertise and dedication to the property industry, delivering accurate and reliable valuation services. He's a director at Asset Strata Valuers, a reputable national industry leader, and heads up a team providing strata valuation reports of an exceptional standard. So thank you so much, James, for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm James from Asset Strata Valuers. We're going to discuss today how to unlock your property or building's surplus space and look at some examples and case studies on how things have transacted for others in recent times, and how OCs can make money and generate some income from looking at their excess space. So let's start. Yep. Okay, so this is just a presentation that we've created from Asset Strata Valuers. So that's just some general copyright disclaimer there. So the first one is conversion options for development. So we're looking at what are the possibilities of development and conversion of space. Let's have a look at some basic understanding of what we're talking about. The first one is conversion of airspace in within your existing development, within your existing building. So building a new housing or extending existing housing on top of an apartment block. So that's, in other words, you might have a flat roof and there's a possibility of creating further structure on top of that flat roof. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about as an example further on. Next one is roof space conversion. That's where you're converting roof space into additional apartments or attics or extensions to existing top floor units where we can activate that roof space and create additional space through either apartments, attics or extensions. The next one is basement conversion. There've been what that is converting basement and subfloor space, subterranean space into additional apartments or extensions of lots. They might be ground floor units that activate the subterranean or basement or subfloor area as an extension of their lot, or it could be a complete new dwelling, a complete new unit underneath. The next one is excess land conversion. This is a really simple and exciting view of how to convert some of your excess land into simple things like car spaces. There's so many possibilities where you could possibly extend some courtyards to a ground floor unit. The extensions to existing lots and parking lots could even include electronic, vehicle solutions. So your EV solutions, where you can put charging stations in to generate income for the body corporate, or to simply improve the overall aesthetic of the building. So they're the four main categories we're going to be looking at, and we're going to look at some case study in reference to that, and then we'll look at some legislation requirements at the back end. I need to make mention that we're not qualified lawyers or qualified town planners or qualified strata managers for that reason, but what we are qualified in is creating the feasibility and the analysis and the direction for owners corporations to open their eyes on the possibilities of converting space. We can provide that analysis, and we're qualified in that side of things. So let's continue to the next slide. Okay, so motivation behind why an owners corporation or building corporation can look at converting space, and what is the motivation for this? And we've analysed it into 5 major components. So additional revenue to cover increasing running costs. We all know that insurance premiums and maintenance and capital expenditure costs have all gone through the roof for everybody in strata, and so any additional revenue to cover some of these running costs is a blessing. So that's something that that's one of the major factors and motivations behind it. Number 2 is creating funds to cover building upgrades, restoration, major renovations, maintenance projects, climate proofing existing buildings to deal with the rising temperatures, increased storm activities. Look, we know that, especially in Sydney and Melbourne, and South Australia and Western Australia, Queensland, there are buildings that are, cracking 100 years old or getting very close. And these older buildings in strata require a higher degree of maintenance than a newer building. Obviously, a newer building has less costs to run and maintain these facilities, whereas an older building will require substantial costs for upgrades, especially electricals, plumbing, roof, roof structural integrity of the roof. Over time, these major components of a building deteriorate, and without proper maintenance program, these buildings are going to deteriorate quicker than others. So, raising extra funds through space conversion, it can generate the income to offset some of these costs. Next one is upgrades that reduce overall strata costs. So adding solar panels, battery technology, especially EV solutions, can add value to the income stream to a strata complex. So the efficiencies in electricity options, heat pumps, etc. All these are new technologies that are available to everyday building corporations, can provide that extra income that and offset some of the costs to run your building, and to obviously improve the efficiency of your building. So these are the things that new technology can provide. Next one is prevents older buildings becoming derelict or dormant because they don't have enough in their capital work fund to improve their quality and improve their efficiency. So that additional space conversion generates that income especially for older buildings, to then be able to upgrade their buildings to a new level. And by upgrading your building, you're improving the overall value, your marketability and your value to your unit, your individual unit, or to your individual lot. So next one is an income producing activity for the owners corp. Profits can be saved for paying admin costs, upcoming capital work expense. So again, it doesn't have to be the sale of space conversion. It could also be that the owners corporation may wish to develop their own space and then sell that space or rent that space. A lot of owners corps, because rents are going through the roof around Australia, as we all know, with rental pressures in the marketplace at the moment, rents have never been higher. And, that could benefit an owners corporation instead of selling that, maybe the conversion of space, let's say a basement level into 2 units, and selling them off. The owners corporation could develop them through obtaining a loan, and there's quite a few options there available, but then rent those particular 2 units out. Okay, so the next slide is the first example is basement conversion. This is a simple process. You might have a sloping block. It might be partly excavated already. And we're looking at, for example, a live case in North Bondi Beach, a 1930s building overlooking North Bondi Beach, required substantial repairs and upgrades. So they thought, okay, well, how do we create that, revenue or that income to, offset the repairs and upgrades? So they looked at the basement. They looked at the basement and converted common property basement area into 2 one-bedroom apartments. These apartments consisted of 54 square meters internal self-contained units, with including a bathroom, laundry, a combined lounge, and a dining off the kitchen, and a master bedroom with a courtyard off the lounge of about 9 square meters. So that's the conversion. So you can see in the photo there, that's what it was before, and that's the combined lounge and dining photo from after it was completed. So the feasibility on this is a first example of a live case. Both those units were sold off. They generated 1.825 million combined gross realisation. Total cost to develop it was $1.138 $330,000 total cost. Net development profit was around $372,770, which is a development margin of roughly 24% net. They also, from what we've been told from the local agent, that one of the properties were bought by an investor, and the rental income achieved was $850 a week, which is about $44,000 a year for each unit. So, I mean, the rental income, is just crazy at the moment. So, but they sold both of those units for $1.8 million, 1.825. That's fabulous money. That's great profit margin for a 12-month exercise. They had to obviously go to council and seek council approval. There was obviously a normal process for that. So that's a first feasibility of how an OC, an owners corporation, can actually do the development and achieve a good profit margin. Next one. Okay, so roof space conversion. Okay, so basically, typically you build within the roof space itself. So an OC can sell roof space to top floor apartments, so owners can add additional rooms and possibly secure views. That's very important. I mean, if you can capture some water views through the attic, through an extension in the roof, that can add substantial amount of money to your market value for your top floor unit. You might have suburban views now, but with an attic at the top, you might be able to get water views. So that's a typical example of that, a 1-bedroom attic. The next one is, so when you look at the attic, doing a 1-bedroom attic extension as per that photo that we've got there, the feasibility side of it is gross realisation is around $200,000. Total cost is about $130,000. Net profit's about $35,000. So your development margin's around 21%. I mean, that's simple stuff that can be done with very little effort. Now, I must qualify that, again, there is the council requirements, there is the the FSR, floor space ratio, height limits. There are development considerations through council that have to be met. So this is all subject to council approval. We can recommend some town planners if there's any questions about that. Town planners can assist on how that process is run. Okay, next example.
James, can I just jump in really quickly and ask a question that's come up in chat? And I'm not sure if you can answer this or not, but just regarding the income or the profit that they get out of the sale, does that, who pays the tax on that profit? Is it the OC, do you know, or is it the lot owners? Is it divided?
No, it depends on how it's sold. It depends on the vehicle. It depends on how the circumstances unfold. But yes, there is tax applicable, of course. This is an income producing exercise. Again, if it's your principal place of residence, that could then play a role as well. Each state have their own version of those definitions. So I would refer back to a lawyer in that regard to get some understanding as to what the impact is for your individual case.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, so the next conversion is roof space conversion. So balcony and rumpus added. So OCs can sell roof space, top floor apartments, so owners can add additional rooms and possible secure views again. So we've got another example here. This is a feasibility. So gross realisation is about 350,000 and total cost is about 226,000. That's putting the balcony and rumpus room, and then your net profit's around $62,000, about a 21% net return on your development margin. Another perfect example of adding value. I mean, we're talking about the top floor apartment expanding into the roof space, therefore increasing their internal size and capturing views. That photo is actually capturing the views from the balcony and the rumpus room. You can see water. So that's another example of how to generate further income. So next one. Okay, next one is roof space conversion. Again, this is where you had a situation where the top floor of a Manly apartment doubled their floor area. They were a young family that were they were outgrowing their unit on the top floor. So they thought, well, okay, there is the roof space. Let's convert the roof space into virtually doubling the size of their unit and stay within the same area, stay in the same development. So they built this new floor. They gained, which is they included a new kitchen, living area, lounge, bathroom, and bedroom. So and the balcony with coastal views. I mean, that's the sort of thing that can be done, depending on whether obviously you've got the roof space to do it. But that's increasing that possibility for that family to stay within the area and stay within the development. So that's a good exercise as well. Okay, this is a famous case in Tamarama in Sydney, where the rooftop was converted into 2 penthouses. They each sold $20 million each, and that revenue that the Owners Corporation received for selling the roof space off and generated that they were able to then provide an extensive renovation for their 80 unit apartment development. So they renovated an old building completely from the ground up because they had the revenue from the sales of the 2 units, the 2 penthouses at $20 million each. Okay, so we've got excess space of land. This is where we actually facilitated this exercise ourselves. It was in Double Bay, Sydney. It was an exclusive area of Sydney, and everyone knows Double Bay. And what it was an existing garden beds and a small ex-rubbish bin brick building, and we converted those spaces into 4 additional car spaces. This is a classic, simple example of looking laterally within your development of creating more space, but very simple space. It's not building, it's just 4 car spaces. But look at the numbers. Numbers don't lie. They sold these car spaces for $300,000 each in Double Bay. They achieved a gross realisation of $1.2 million. The cost of converting this area was $180,000 total cost. Town planners, councils, floor plans, all that sort of paperwork side of things, $180,000. Net profit was $1,020,000. So that, I mean, those sorts of exercises are simple, easy to do, but you've got to think laterally. Next one. Okay, so here we've got a special section on strata EVs. It links in with the conversion of car spaces of excess land. This is another exercise, and it's really hot off the press, where OCs can actually add value to their existing development by implementing EV charging solutions. So Strata EV are a specialised company. National manager is Tony Francis. I've got Tony Francis details in the corner. What Tony Francis and his team do is they specialise in walking into a building and saying, okay, we can provide charging solution so that your car spaces are ready for the future. We put in a charging EV battery into each car space, linked back to the centralised electricity equipment of the within the development. They upgrade that as well, and then together, they can generate real income for owners. They can actually, the owners corporation can actually charge a little bit extra and make money off the system. And Tony's team are willing and able to, give you guys an analysis on how to do that. There's a preliminary stage 1 report, which is about $2,500. But talk to Tony. And a real life example was in Burleigh Heads. It was a 32 lots, 1970s walk-up building. They converted and supplied the 32 car spaces over 2 levels with a permanent long-term charging solution, providing a 7 kilowatt single-phase standard charging EV battery, which provided that you could virtually charge your vehicle within 4 to 8 hours, depending on the car battery size. The committee budget then provided the upgrade for existing electrical equipment, as well as the providing solutions for the overall building itself, whether both peak and off peak. The agreed solution was the upgrade of the existing switchboard and 2 new distribution boards. Total cost was $104,000. That represents a cost per lot of about $3,250. And the OC are now considering solar, wind generation, LED lighting, motion sensor, and further upgrades. This is the way of the future. It's preparing your building for the changes coming. And Tony and his team, I recommend that you give them a call and explore how he can provide solutions, energy solutions in real time. Okay, next one is navigating the conversation around the process, the 2 principal processes. And again, I've got to be careful here that each state might have slight differentials on how to get there. But there's principally 2 main pathways, okay? And the 2 main pathways is exclusive use, common property exclusive bylaw. The asset, like roof or car space, sells within the complex to an existing owner. The area remains common property and will not form part of a lot, therefore does not affect the UOEs, which is UOEs stand for Unit of Entitlements, or the strata plan. So it's less a complex process, but there is some sort of downsides, I suppose, to that, and that is that lawyers and lenders, so selling the lot may be more difficult as buyers may become concerned about the inferior level of ownership when relying on a bylaw. So the new exclusive bylaw must be implemented via a lawyer. So again, there are some downsides to handling the sale process of converted space by way of an exclusive bylaw, but it's less complex. But there is some, there are some catches there. So you talk to a lawyer about the pros and cons of that, because there are some lenders don't like exclusive bylaws. So the next step, the next process is, instead of the exclusive bylaw, you do it through a strata subdivision. That's the next step, and that's done through which is a more permanent tool of ownership, is the preferred legal form of ownership by lawyers and lenders. Involves the process of strata subdivision is a little bit more complex though, and it costs more, because you have to provide a new set of unit of entitlements through a new, this is where the valuer certificate comes in New South Wales. Involves a new strata plan, provides greater security, and may increase the value of your lot based on holding freehold title to the area rather than exclusive use under a bylaw. So it's a permanent structure of subdivision, and that is much more attractive to lawyers and lenders. So that's something to consider. So Asset Strata Valuers can offer consultancy advisory service. We provide all the strata valuation reports. With my business partner, Martin Edson. Martin's the one in the white pants. We've combined 60 years combined experience. We've got extensive property and valuation experience. So we've got the qualifications and the experience to help you. We provided service up and down the east coast of Australia. So we are established in Queensland, established in Victoria, and ACT and New South Wales, of course. And we offer a two-stage process, a preliminary study that gives you what we can convert in your building or your land, and a basic feasibility thereafter to then show how the OC can make money. So we're very excited about this. We're opening this to everybody in Australia, but especially in the East Coast. Unfortunately, we're not expanded into Western Australia and South Australia, Northern Territories and so on. So unfortunately, it is limited to the East Coast, but we're excited that we can help owners corporations make money.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, James. That was fantastic. I really appreciated the presentation. Then when you were talking about the two processes required, or the two processes that you've outlined to change the property or purchase the property that you're looking at converting, obviously those two processes would require different permissions or a different approval process depending on what state they're in as well.
Yes, Queensland, again, is slightly different. They've got different plans as well. So depending on the plan, depending on the process, Queensland's got new strata reforms coming through, which is a big thing. Victoria, it's similar to New South Wales, but there is slight differences in Victoria. They've got a strata subdivision, a subdivision act, which details what they can and can't do. So they're a little bit more strict on what you can and can't do. But again, fundamentally, the principle applies across Australia. If there's excess land, if there's excess roof space, if there's excess airspace, then I think there's an opportunity there to ask the question, can we convert it? Is there a possibility of converting that space? And we'll look at the analysis, we'll look at the basic zoning principles, we'll look at the town planning basic principles, we'll provide commentary as to whether that's possible or not. And then if the answer is that we don't know exactly, then we can bring in other experts, such as town planners, licensed builders. We can bring that analysis, because of our experience and our contacts, to then facilitate a complete answer.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for offering that for our viewers that are here today. I'm sure that there are a lot of people that are interested, possibly haven't thought about these options that are available. We had a chat, as we mentioned beforehand, and some of the things we were talking about were affordable housing and the opportunities that it may open up there. So the examples that you've given, they were really great. I'd love the fact that you had the breakdown of the costs and the profits as well in there to give people an idea of what they can do with those numbers and the sort of profits, especially the car space one in Double Bay. That was amazing. But it looked with the converted spaces that you were talking about with the rooftops and the attics that had been sort of converted over into different living spaces and balconies and things. So they were mainly the people that lived in the apartment purchased that airspace or came to some arrangement with the building to access that roof space and then developed from there. Do you have examples as well as when the building has actually gotten together and decided to sell the roof space off to, say, a developer to come in and develop that space?
Yes. Yeah, we have got several examples of that. There's Bondi, Coogee, Bronte, especially where there's, the conversion of airspace can trigger substantial upside, substantial profitability. But it can also cause, the fact that for most owners corporations, they don't have the time to develop. So what we've seen is we've actually joint ventured together with the developer and the owners corporation. We've brought the developer in, we've brought the OC together. The OC offer the airspace. The joint venture agreement says the developer will build it and share the profitability. There's many ways of handling that. Or the alternative is that the developer just comes in and buys the airspace out. There's the other alternative, and that is that we're not suggesting only that the owners corporations develop their own land. There is also the other scenario, is simply just selling the space off. Simply saying, okay, we know that we can probably build it, you probably get about 30 square meters in the roof space. We want a quick 50 grand. We know that we've got a flat roof where we can potentially build another 2 penthouses. We want $1 million. And, that way the OCs get out of that, the headache of developing it themselves or doing a joint venture with the developer. They just wipe their hands clean, quick $1 million, quick $50,000, and the problem is solved. And they generate that additional revenue without any headache. Now, obviously, there'll have to be lawyers involved in protecting the owners corporation's interest in the event of a development or a further extension. So lawyers become, an integral part of this process to protect the owners corporation's risk. But on the basis of that risk that can be handled through a lawyer, then yes, we can see a quick buck being made with very little effort. And that's the beautiful thing about this. We're taking the blinkers off owners corporations, saying to the owners corporations around Australia, and including affordable housing, this is a solution to that affordable housing, where you might have the ability to add another 2 floors on top of your building. And you could go to the council and say to council, well, look, under national legislation, affordable housing, we want a bonus FSR. So we want to convert that space, that airspace, from 2 levels to 3 because it's affordable housing. So there are many ways of handling this, and there's not one fits all. We recommend that we look at each case individually. We prepare a preliminary report to say what's possible. Then a stage 2 is the actual feasibility, acting on a scenario. So that's how we've priced the 2 reports. And I think that that's a fabulous way to start. It gives something tangible to the owners corporation to think about and then discuss within themselves. Do we want to act as a developer? Do we want to just sell the space? Or do we want to JV with a developer? And so there's 3 good scenarios there that we can facilitate.
But it's probably something that's not all that common here in Australia at the moment, but it's quite common overseas, isn't it, for them to do things like this? It's been something that they've been developing for quite a while now. But is it, I mean, what's happening in Australia? Are people starting to become aware of it?
Yes, it is. The UK have brought out legislation now. They've realised in the UK that they've got no land or very little. And so they've had to address the vertical space. And they're starting to look at there is legislation, I think it's come out in the last couple of weeks, where in the UK you can add to your existing development. And depending on, I think there are certain criteria that they've spelled out. I think the UK have nailed it. They've said, look, we've got no land to expand. London's fully gone, you know, I mean, you look at all the major cities of the UK, they're completely, you know, landlocked. So, but what they do have abundance of is airspace.
Mm.
So I just think that the future is up. The future is, let's be smart about what our strata properties offer. Our strata properties offer a substantial amount of land. I mean, land alone, like I know examples of properties in DY, in Queensland, on the Gold Coast, or the outskirts of Melbourne, where there is still land available, right? And there are plans of strata complexes that have excess land. Well, there could be a scenario, instead of looking the vertical space, we look at the horizontal space as well and expand the ground floor, you know, the excess land on the periphery, and put affordable housing on the ground floor. There are scenarios where there's one particular building in DY that has 2 units per floor and sits on about, you know, that takes up about 300 square meters of footprint, but the land's like 3,000 meters. So they've got this massive excess of land that they can further develop. We've spoken to that particular owners corporation and said we can add some additional affordable housing units on the ground floor. We can get the FSR bonus. We can go and talk to council about that. The councils would love this sort of thing.
Mm.
It addresses everything. It addresses the affordable housing. It addresses the fact that we're trying to further develop the local area. And you know, when you're getting $850 a week for a 1-bedroom unit in Sydney, you know, you've got to start scratching your head saying, we need more development.
Mm.
And how do we do that? You know, without, you know, compromising land, is look at what we've got existing. And this is where owners corporation can come into it.
Mm.
I think the owners corporations of strata around Australia can play a major role in finding the solution.
When you were speaking about the car space one in particular in Double Bay, I mean, that to me, I mentioned at the beginning a win-win situation, and that to me just really stands out because the owners are happy because they've gotten a car space that they couldn't have access to previously. The building's happy because they've made quite a bit of money at a small expense, and they've been able to put that money back into whatever they did with it in the capital works, or to put back into the running of the building. So I thought that was a really great example. I was thinking about buildings that might have waterproofing issues on the very top floor, like on the roof, and then at the same time they're having to address that. It's an issue that they've got. At the same time, they can look at doing something else in that space that would pay for that repair.
Absolutely.
And we did have a comment come through in the chat saying there's also the increased value of other lots in the apartment complex as well. So that's what you're speaking about. That's something that you haven't mentioned, and they're not in your figures. But any work that's done on the building as well will affect, you would hope, in a positive manner, the value of the apartments.
Well, it just goes hand in hand. You think about, look, you know, that Tamarama one example in our report. They've added 2 penthouses to the roof space, and that triggered a complete renovation of the 80 units that was existing. So all those existing units have gone from one price point to a higher price point, because that upgrade's been done through for the whole building. The upgrades were done, the renovations were done. So you're looking at a capital appreciation that is a single trigger because you've implemented that the sale of those airspace to that conversion of 2 penthouses, and each penthouse sold for $20 million each.
And we go into quite a bit of detail. For anyone wanting more detail about that, we had a session with LANEC. I think it was our very first session of the year. It was Janine Garcia had spoken about LANEC's role in that development as well, and how the figures had panned out and what they'd done. And I'll put a link to that session in the email that we send out later today, James, and people can catch up on that too and get a little bit more detail around it. But that was a really, really great example. We've come up to the end of the session. We thank you so much for opening our mind up to different possibilities that are out there. Hopefully, they're possibilities that would benefit everybody really in the long run. Just a little bit of work to get there, but you can help with that. So give you a call and and you'd be happy to chat with people, I'd imagine, about where they go from now if they're interested.
Absolutely.
If you gained value from this video, please hit like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're looking for information about parking, strata insurance, defects and more, head over to lookupstrata.com.au or sign up to our free weekly newsletter via the link in the description box below.